Sorry?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so my job is to
Recording in progress.
my job today is to talk about trends and perspectives in agriculture. What we do here today is we will first talk about the global trends in the past 20 years, what has happened in the agriculture sector in the past 20 years. And then we will move into, we will move into talking about the the future trends in agriculture, right? So what you have to do here is you can sit back and enjoy. This is not a theoretical uh, aspects. I'm not teaching any theoretical aspects, but I am showing you what has happened in the agriculture sector around the world. And today we will go around the world, and later in the next day we will come back to Sri Lanka, and we will talk about what happened in Sri Lanka in the past 20 years. So the aim is I will show what happened in the past 20 years in Sri Lanka, so in the world, in this case, in the world, and then we will discuss what is happening, what is to be happen in the world in terms of agriculture production, pollution, demand, climate change, and all that. And then to overcome these problems, what is the future thinking in the agriculture sector? So that is what we are going to see. So in the first part of the lecture, in the first slide set, you will see only graphs, right? So I will show you graphs about what has happened in terms of agricultural production, in terms of use of chemicals, use of agricultural inputs, what happened in the past in the world, as well as in various regions in the world. That means Asia, Oceania, Europe, and all this. And then we will in some cases we will even talk about countries, what happened in various countries and so on. Right? So all these will be in a graph, right? In graphs. So then I will go into showing you something called agriculture 4.0, right? So which is the thinking that in order to meet the challenges that is posed by agriculture sector, posed by climate change, posed by environment pollution, and all this, how to meet these challenges? What are the possible ways of meeting these challenges? So that is the future prospects of agriculture sector. What is the future is going to be? And we will show you that you can print and eat food according to the current developments in the agriculture. You can actually tell a printer to print a carrot, and the carrot will be printed, right? So that kind of development is there, and you will see how deserts are converted into agricultural lands. You will see how plastics are converted so that these plastics have become biodegradable. So it can be the plastic bottles or whatever that you use plastic for can be directly used to make compost and so on and so forth. These developments are there, and you will see cultured meat, where meat is produced without killing any animal, right? Killing any animal, and you will tissue culture meat and produce meats, and your burgers will have meat without killing an animal, right? So that is what the future holds for you, right? So this lecture is about what has happened in the past 20 years, what are the problems that that the agriculture sector is going to face in the next 50 years, and then what are the developments in the agriculture sector, right? So that is what we are going to see. So let's talk about agriculture and world outlook of the agriculture. Right? World outlook. Right? So you are in agriculture, you are doing diploma in agriculture and plantation management. So you are in agriculture. So you have to know what happened to agriculture in the past and into the future. So we all know by now, that is why you are in this degree or diploma, agriculture is an important sector in the global economy. And global value added generated by agriculture, that is addition of value into the GDP or the gross domestic product or to the national income in short. From agriculture, forestry and fishing grew by 73%. And agriculture in a වටිනාකම වැඩි වෙලා තිනවා by 73% in real terms between 2000 to 2019. 73% has increased, right? And in terms of value that is generated by the agriculture sector, in the whole world, it's around $3.5 trillion, right? Not rupees, right? $3.5 trillion in 2019. Total production of primary crops. Primary crops meaning you don't do any process, just the crop output. Total production of primary crops increased by 53% between 2000 and 2019, and which is 9.4 billion tons in 2019. Right? Total production of primary crops, 2019 alone, 9.4 billion tons. But you might think, okay, we are teaching agriculture and plantation management. You may think, okay, tea, rubber, coconut is a crop, but it's a crop. It's for a region, right? It's a crop, but its importance is less in terms of, if you look at the world production, half of the world's crop production comes from sugarcane, maize, wheat, and rice, right? Half of the, මේ බිලියන 9.4 ටොන් වලින් භාගයක්ම මේ හතරෙන් තමයි හැදෙන්නේ. Sugarcane, maize, wheat, and rice. So that is the world general outlook in the world. So if you look at the contribution of agriculture, forestry, and fishing. So when we take agriculture, usually the data in the world and even in the central bank annual report, if you want to find anything about the developments in the country, you can go into the central bank annual report. You can download it on the central bank's website. So they will give agriculture, forestry, and fishing together, right? That is why it's here together. So contribution of agriculture, forestry, and fishing to the world economy is like this, right? So how do you understand this graph here? This is the value added by agriculture, forestry, and fishing by region, right? For example, you can see that Asian region has the highest addition to the global agriculture sector, right? So to the global agriculture sector, Asian region is a major player, right? Major player. So one of the major players in the globe is Asia. Then Americas, Africa, Europe, all are in very small amount. For example, if this height, if the total agriculture 4% comes from Asia. Only 14% comes from Americas. 12% comes from Africa. 10% comes from Europe, right? And only very small percentage comes from Oceania. Oceania is our countries in the Pacific Ocean, right? So if you cannot hear me, please let me know, right? Sometimes this internet is unstable. If you cannot hear me, please at least type a message. I'm assuming that you can hear me. Now, if you look at share of agriculture, forestry, and fishing value added in total GDP, GDP is, if you do not know, that is called gross domestic product. Right? Gross domestic product. What is this? This is equal to national income. රටක ජාතික ආදායම මනින්නේ gross domestic product එකෙන්. හරිද? එතකොට මේ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? Share of agriculture, forestry, and fishing value added in total GDP by region. Total national, out of total national income, what is the share of agriculture, right? What is the share of agriculture? And you can see this color is Africa. Share of agriculture in GDP is very growing, slightly coming down over time, right? So this is the world. World is again stable or slightly coming down. This is Oceania. This is Europe, right? So the share of agriculture, percentage of national income coming from agriculture is growing in poorer countries, right? In poorer countries. But a factor or a feature in developing countries is that when development happens, the share of GDP or national income from agriculture declines. For example, when I was a student undergraduate student, the share of agriculture production is around 20%, right? 20%, 22%. Share of agriculture from national income. We can රටේ ආදායමෙන් 20%ක් එන්නේ agriculture. Then 7%. Right? That doesn't mean agriculture has worsened. That means the other sectors have developed. Right? Other sectors have developed. Now, usually when a country develops, either the manufacturing sector or the services sector develops faster than agriculture. So, therefore, that is why the share of agriculture coming down. But that doesn't mean agriculture is bad, right? So keep that in mind. So this is how agriculture has contributed to the world economy. Now, if I look at factors of production, what are these factors of production? Means inputs into production of agriculture, right? Inputs into production of agriculture. We usually say there are 4 main kinds of inputs: land, labor, capital and management. But here we take land and water together, and then we will look at how fertilizer applications have happened, how pesticide use have increased, how land has degraded, declined, and all that will be looked at. So factors of production, we will first look at factors කියන්නේ production සඳහා පාවිච්චි කරන අමුද්‍රව්‍ය. So factors of production, first we will look at land and water together, and all this data comes from FAO. Right? FAO means Food and Agricultural Organization. Right? Food and Agricultural Organization. Now, if you type in the internet FAO stat, right? FAO stat කියලා ගැහුවොත්, you will get this data, right? So you can. These are ready-made graphics that I have downloaded, but you can either, if you want to look at that in terms of a country, you can download this data and look at what has happened in a particular country. Now, in the next day, we will show you about Sri Lankan situation, and again, I will use data from FAO, right? FAO stat. So, if you look at world agriculture land by use, right? Now, you might say that when you think about agriculture, you think about, okay, paddy, tea, rubber, coconut. That is our mentality in Sri Lanka, because those are the crops that we see in this country. These are the major crops in this country. But when you go to the world, right? When you go to the world, majority of agricultural land, right? Majority of agricultural land is cultivated by grass, right? Cultivated by grass. So this is what grass means: permanent meadows and pastures, right? So this is grass. Why do you need a lot of grass? For example, in 2000, 69% of the total agricultural land was under grass. Only 31% is under other crops like maize, wheat, sugarcane, rice, tea, rubber, coconut. All this comes for 31, adds up to 31% of the total land extent in agriculture. 69% is pastures and grass. Why is that? Because this is used for animal production, right? These grasslands are used for animal production. So this is animal or livestock industry is a big industry in the world, right? So unlike in Sri Lanka, livestock industry is a big industry. So that is why you need a lot of grasslands. Now, by 2019, from 2000, it's 69% versus 31%. By 2019, similar pattern is there, 67% and 33% of agricultural land. Now, if you take this agricultural land and divide it into areas, divide it into what you call region, this crop plan, right? Crop plan into various regions, you can see that major portion of the cropland, this cropland is in Asia, right? Is in Asia. That is in 2000 it was 38%, and 2019 still it is 38%. But Americas, you can see that it was 25% out of the total, but now it is 24%. So there is not much change. The same pattern was there in various regions in the country. So you can see the regions in different colors in this picture, right? So this is land use in agriculture, right? So cropland is used for various crops that we use, but pastures are grassland. Now, world agricultural land by use and main countries in 2019. So if you look at pastures or grassland, you can see that major country that grows pasture is China, Australia, and United States. All others are here. But these are major countries who grow pasture. And if you look at cropland, India becomes bigger, right? Out of the agricultural crops, actually crops that we use, not grass, other crops, India is a bigger country, United States and China, right? Now, if you move on to this graph, from this graph to this graph, per capita cropland, per capita. What is the meaning of per capita? Is per person. Per person cropland. එක මිනිහෙකුට කොච්චරද අපි මුළු cropland එකම බෙදුවොත් මිනිස්සු ගානේ එක farmersලා ගානේ එක මිනිහෙකුට කොච්චර croplands තියනවද කියන එක තමයි මේකේ අදහස. So if you look at this picture, highest cropland per person is available in Oceania, right? Oceania countries. This is the average in the world. Now you can see Asians have, we are in Asia, so we have special significance for that area. We see that per person around 0.1 hectare, right? Around 0.1 hectare is available per person in Asian countries. But here, around close to 0.8 to 0.9%, 0.9 hectares per capita is available in Oceania. Even in Americas, it's per person. This is the average value, right? Per person availability of land, right? So what do you have to know about? Why do you have to know about it? You have to know that we are South Asia. We are a very small country. Sometimes in India, there are even states which are bigger than Sri Lanka, right? So therefore, we have to understand we are a small country. We lack space. So therefore, our technology should be developed towards to getting maximum out of the small area that we have, right? So that is what you have to take out of this picture, right? Now, if you look at area equipped for irrigation by region, now we are looking at water, right? Now land is over, now looking at water. Now, if you look at areas suitable or can be irrigated, right? Areas can be irrigated, so there is no water scarcity. There is no water scarcity in this areas without any water scarcity. If you look at the total in the 2000, 69% of land which can be irrigated was found in Asia, right? 70% of land which can be irrigated in 2019 is found in Asia. Only 16% in Americas, 8% in Europe, and 5% in Africa, right? So that is how we are situated. So you can see that if you look at consider Sri Lanka's situation, we are a very lucky country because we have distributed rainfall throughout the year. Sometimes we feel that rainfall is not there, but if you go to other countries, it's much difficult than this, right? Much difficult than this. So therefore, we are a fortunate nation in that sense. Now, if you look at the share of area equipped for irrigation in agricultural land area by region, now if you look at out of, for example, this line shows you Asia, in Asia, out of the total agricultural land, what percentage can be irrigated, what percentage can be irrigated. Now, looking at that figure, you get a different picture. That means in 2000, year 2000, in Asia, only 12% of total agricultural land can be irrigated. Share of area equipped for irrigation in agricultural land area by region. So it's only 12% of agricultural land could be irrigated, right? And 88% could not be irrigated. That doesn't mean they cannot be grown. Maybe they have already rainfall in those areas, right? But what you have to remember is irrigation becomes a major factor in supplying water to agriculture production. So even in Asia, although we said here Asia is good, even in Asia, only 12% of land could be equipped for irrigation in 2000, and it has increased to 14% by 2019 over the past 20 years. Now, if you look at going with water again, share of water withdrawal by agriculture in total withdrawals of the top countries in 2018. Right? 2018. What does it say? If you extract water from the ground for various uses, what is the share of agricultural use? ඒ කියන්නේ ලීටර් 100ක් ගන්නවා නම් වතුර පොළොවෙන් උඩට පොළොවෙන් ඇදලා හරි කොහෙන් හරි වතුර පාවිච්චි කරනවා ලීටර් 100ක් ඒ 100න් කොච්චරක් ඇග්‍රිකල්චර්ද කියලා තමයි මේකේ තියෙන්නේ. If you look at Somalia දන්නවනේ ත්‍රස්තවාදී කියන බුදු කොල්ලකාරයෝ ඉන්නවා කියන්නේ. So if you look at Somalia, close to 99% of water that is taken out is used in agriculture, right? Used in agriculture. Now, Sri Lanka is not here. That means we are using less water for agriculture, right? Less water for agriculture in terms of the total water available to us. That means we are again a fortunate country, right? So this is how water is seen. Why am I showing you this? Because to show that water is a scarce resource, right? Scarce resource. Right? Okay, scarce resource. Now that is land and water. Now we can go into look at labor. Next input is labor. Major input in production. Right? Labor is one of the major inputs in production. Now if you look at agricultural labor in from 2000 to 2020, right? Year 2000 to 2020. Year 2000, it was higher. The amount of labor available, employment in agriculture is higher in 2000. But when it comes to 2020, you can see that everywhere it has declined. And everywhere it has come down. Right? Most of the agricultural labor is available again in Asia. Right? Asia can agriculture area. That is what I'm trying to show you. Right? It's an area specific for agriculture. So Asian region. So the employment is in agriculture is more, the extent in agriculture is more, but what you have to see is agricultural employment is coming down. So if you even if you go to figure 11, share of agriculture and forestry, fishing employment, total employment by region. ඒ කියන්නේ මුළු employment එකෙන් agriculture කොච්චරද කියලා. මුළු employment එකෙන් agriculture, how much of agriculture out of the total employment in each region. Now, if you look at Africa, even Africa, it's coming down. We have seen here the share, seen here. Yes. Africa here, you can see that share of agriculture, forestry, fishing, value added is rising. Right? Value added is rising, but still the share of employment is coming down. Everywhere employment in agriculture is coming down. It is because employment is moving away from agriculture into other areas like services sector. Right? People move into services sector, moving away from agriculture. So that is one of the major issues faced by agriculture sector, labor moving out. So there is a scarcity of labor. You can see that it has come down everywhere in the world, right? Everywhere in the world. But still, agriculture remains the second largest source of employment worldwide after the services sector, right? Although agriculture employment is coming down, although the agriculture employment is coming down, the agriculture remains second largest source of employment worldwide after the services sector. So that is labor. So there is going to be a labor scarcity. So any agricultural development should be worried about labor use efficiency. Now you will have less labor in the future. And when you have less labor, you will have to have some way of cultivating with less labor or producing agricultural product with less labor, maybe using machinery. So when I said machinery, capital comes into play. So capital and investment is about machinery. So capital in the agriculture sector includes machinery, equipment and tools, as well as the farm buildings, and is essential in the production of agricultural outputs. Right? So in the production of agricultural outputs, you use various machinery, various equipment, various tools, sometimes buildings. All these together is called capital, right? Capital. So how was capital used in agriculture in the past 20 years? So if you look at capital formation, gross fixed capital formation in the agriculture, forestry and fishing, can a capital කියන්නේ දීර්ඝ කාලයක් benefits ලබාගත හැකි man-made දේවල්, right? So දීර්ඝ කාලයක් benefits ලබාගත හැකි man-made දේවල් නම්, for example, machine. A certain machine is called a capital because it can give out, it can be used for long time, right? It take a tractor, it can use for maybe 10, 15, maybe 30, 50 years, and it is man-made, right? That is capital. Now, we have very, very important capital in our country where our past kings have produced for us, kept for us. That is our tank system, right? So it is a man-made. Now it looks like a ocean. We call Parakrama Samudra. It looks like ocean, but it is man-made, right? So it gives us water from the days of King Parakram Bahu to until now, right? So that is also capital, right? That is also capital, but we don't consider that here. I just wanted to mention what is the nature of capital, right? So we use here machinery, equipment, tools, as well as the farm buildings. Now, if you look at the gross capital formation as a share of value added by agriculture is, if you look at this bars, the longest bars is shown in these countries. These are European countries, right? So they are in their countries, so a lot of machinery or capital formation is happening, right? So they may be doing capital intensive production. But here in Sri Lanka, what we have is labor intensive production, right? Labor intensive production. That is, to produce, we use a lot of labor. We use labor rather than machinery. But when you see this figure, these three countries in Europe, they are using more capital than labor. That is why its capital formation is high, right? So government expenditure on agriculture, if you look at investments, government investment in terms of various things, in terms of cultivating bunds, tanks, or giving subsidies to the farmers, all that, then Sri Lanka comes into play, right? So Sri Lanka is a country which government invests in the agriculture sector. Now, apart from Switzerland, right? Apart from Switzerland, I think, yes, apart from Switzerland, all other countries are developing nations, right? Developing nations who invest in agriculture, right? Because most of our GDP is still agriculture, right? So that is why, and most of our people are engaged in agriculture. So therefore, government has to invest in agriculture, not the private sector. Now let's turn our heads to use of pesticide in the world, right? Pesticide in the world. Now, if you look at these pictures, the summary is from 2000 to 2019, from year 2000 to 2019, there is a 36% increase in pesticide use in the world, right? 36% increase in pesticide use in the world. Now, if you look at it by region, right? By region, you can see that Asian region uses out of the total pesticide, total amount of pesticides that is used, 53% is applied in Asia. And in year 2019, again, 52% is applied in Asia. And you can see that in Americas, pesticide use have increased, right, from 29% to 33%. But Europe, it has come down, right? It has not come down, sorry. It has increased, but the share in total has come down because Americas one has a greater increase, right? Has a greater increase. So this is how pesticide use has happened. But what you have to remember is, over the years, in the agriculture sector, the importance of pesticide has gone up, right? Importance of pesticide has gone up. Now, if you look at pesticide use per cropland area by region, that is, akkare hectare eකට කොච්චර දානවද, right? So the axis says, the y-axis says kilograms per hectare. So how many kilograms per hectare is applied in various regions? This color is 2000, 2005, 2010, 2019. Everywhere you can see it's increasing, right? It's increasing. The pesticide used by hectare is rising. කියන්නේ ඒකකයට දාන pesticide ප්‍රමාණය, පලිබෝධනාශක ප්‍රමාණය වැඩි වෙලා තියෙන හැම රටේම, right? හැම පළාතෙම, රටේම හැම region එකේ. So Africa's, and you can see that Americas and Asia applies at a higher rate, right? Americas and Asians apply at a higher rate of pesticide into agricultural land, that is kilograms per hectare, right? So what do we have to do? We know that it's damaging to the environment, right? It's damaging to the environment. So there should be ways of reducing this somehow. Now, looking at fertilizer, right? Looking at inputs such as fertilizer, if you look at the inorganic fertilizer used by region, and inorganic fertilizer used by region, everywhere fertilizer has increased. So this is nitrogen, this is phosphorus. In the next slide, you have potassium and total, right? So nitrogen and phosphorus application, we know that in fertilizer you have NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So nitrogen application have increased over time in all areas. Asia is the highest applicator. Phosphorus, Asia is the highest applicator. It's because Asia is the largest agricultural land, and a lot of agriculture is done in Asian region, right? So agriculture, Asia is an agricultural powerhouse, right? So most of the agriculture is happening in Asia, right? Although other countries contribute according to these figures. So everywhere the application of nitrogen and phosphorus has increased. From 2000 to 2019, worldwide increase in nitrogen use is 33%. Worldwide increase in phosphorus use is 34%, right? Worldwide increase in phosphorus use is 34%. Nitrogen use is 33%, right? So you can see that inorganic fertilizer application have risen over the years, right? Risen over the years sharply. But if you look at potassium, K or potassium, its increase is very large, 73% from 2000 to 2019. There is 73% increase in potassium use. And in overall fertilizer use has increased by 40% over the past 20 years, right? So we tried to be organic in the past several years, but it is going against the world trend, right? It is going against the world trend. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but we try to go against the world trend, and fail miserably, right? Fail miserably. World trend is application of fertilizer is high. Application of fertilizer came into play because of the green, what we call as the green revolution, where a lot of hybrid varieties were produced during 1960s. Green revolution happened, so a lot of hybrid varieties were produced, and those hybrid varieties they need fertilizer application to give the potential yield. Right? So therefore, when the development is towards this hybrid variety, still it is happening. So to get the yield out of the given yield out of this hybrid varieties, you have to add fertilizer, and this has happened, grown up. And also, the land, when you apply fertilizer again and again, land tends to degrade, right? Land tends to degrade. When lands degrade, you have to add more fertilizer, right? You have to add more fertilizer, and fertilizer becomes a costly part in your agricultural production, right? It becomes a costly part in your agricultural production. That is what you have to think in agriculture, right? This is the world trend. Now, if you look at the inorganic fertilizer used by nutrient and region, we can see, looking at these graphs, nitrogen is the dominant nutrient, right? We all understand nitrogen is needed for plant growth. So nitrogen is the dominant nutrient in all areas, right? Americas may part in nitrogen, right? Nitrogen is the dominant nutrient everywhere. Can may buy in may part, right? So then phosphorus, then potassium. So although the potassium use grew by 73%, nitrogen is the dominant nutrient applied into soil. So Europe, it is 64% of fertilizer use. Africa, it is 61% of fertilizer use. Asia, 60% of fertilizer use. Oceania, 51% of fertilizer use. And in Americas, it is 49% of fertilizer use. Right? So nitrogen is the dominant nutrient. Everyone applies nitrogen. Nitrogen is needed for the growth of the plant. Then later you need phosphorus and potassium for various to get yield out of this. Now that is the use of inputs, right? Use of inputs. We have looked at fertilizer. We have looked at pesticides. We have looked at capital. We have looked at labor, land, and water. Right? So how they have evolved. Use of these resources have evolved over time. Now let's talk about production. So all these inputs are used to get production, right? Used to get production out of crops. So if you look at this section here, it says that around 53% increase in production of primary crops have happened from 2000 to 2019. 53% from the 2000 value, 53% of production has increased by 2019. This is due to application of fertilizer, development of new varieties, use of land extends, increasing use of good lands. All these production becoming efficient, all these factors have contributed, and primary crop production have increased by 53% to 9.4 billion tons in 2019. Out of this 9.4 billion tons, 50% comes from sugarcane, maize, wheat, and rice. So the main crops that is produced in the world are sugarcane, maize, wheat, and rice. Right? Now, if you look at vegetable oil, it is again, why we put it here, it is again a rising sector, right? Rising sector. Vegetable oil production increased by 118% from 2000 to 2009. Vegetable oils increased by 118% from 2000 to 2019. So primary crop production increased by 53%. Out of this 50% comes from sugarcane, maize, and wheat, and rice. And vegetable oils is an emerging sector. Oleaginous products is an emerging sector. About 118% increase in vegetable oil production can be seen in the world. World production of crops, if you summarize it by commodity groups, right? Commodity groups, and in the second graph, figure 21, you have by commodities, main commodities. Commodity groups are taken as cereals, sugar crops, sugar beet, sugar cane, all these are sugar crops together, vegetables together, oil crops together, fruit and roots and tubers together are given in the figure 20 here, right? Figure 20 here. You can see that all have increased, and cereals and sugar crops are the main production, right? Cereals and sugar crops are the main production levels, main output that is produced. Now, if you look at figure 21, where world production of crops by main commodities are given, you can see that this color is sugar cane, right? Sugar cane. Sugar cane production is great, and I said here 50% of crop production comes from sugar cane, maize, wheat, and rice. So that is shown in this graph, right? That is shown in this graph. Next one is maize, right? This one is maize. This one is wheat. This one is rice, right? You can see that these are the four main crops that is produced in the world, right? So this is billions of tons, right? So out of the, let's say, for example, 2019, if out of the total production of primary crops, 21% is sugarcane, 12% is maize, 8% is wheat, 8% is 8% is rice and paddy, right? So that is how production is organized, what production has happened in the world. And all production, all kinds of products, their production have increased. So what you see is agriculture is a demanding industry where it's growing. The production is growing and the demand is growing. In 2019, cereals are the main group of crops produced. Sugar crops 24%, vegetables and oil crops 12% each. Right? So that is how it is organized. Now, if you look at main producers, right? If you look at main producers, who are the main producers in the world? Who produce these crops and derived products? If you look at sugar cane in the first picture, if you look at sugar cane here, Brazil, India, and Thailand are the main producers of sugar cane. Maize, United States, China, and Brazil are the main producers in maize. Wheat, China, India, and Russia are the main producers. Rice, China, India, and Indonesia are the main producers. Oil palm, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. Potato, China, India, and Russia are the main producers. Right? Now, when you talk about world production of main vegetable oils by main producers, main vegetable oils, oil palm is mainly produced in India, Malaysia, and Thailand. Soybean oil is produced by China, USA, and Brazil, mainly, main portion. Rapeseed oil is produced by Canada, China, and Germany. Sunflower oil is Ukraine, Russia, and Argentina. Maybe sunflower oil may be expensive now. Why? Ukraine is one of the major producers, and Russia is also involved in the war. But Russian things are coming, exported, but Ukraine is in trouble, right? So therefore, sunflower oil demand may be higher than supply today, and thereby prices may be high. Now, apart from agricultural crops that we produce, we have livestock, right? Livestock is major part of world agriculture. Livestock is part of agriculture, right? Remember, Lamai, right? Livestock is part of agriculture. Now, livestock and livestock commodities, how it has evolved over the past 20 years. Now, in 2019, there are 337 million tons of meat were produced, right? 337 million tons of meat were produced in 2019. And when moving from 2000 to 2019, there was an increase of 44% in meat production. 44% of meat production has increased. Meat production has increased by 44%. Again, 2000 ගාන ඉඳන් 144ක් වැඩි වෙලා තමයි 2019 මිලියන 337 ඇති වෙන්නේ. Right? So out of this 44% increase, half of the increase comes from chicken meat, right? Half of the increase comes from chicken meat. If you look at meat production breakdown from the figure, you can see that chicken meat was the most produced type of meat in 2019, followed by pig, cow, and others, right? Chicken, pig, cow, and others. That is the way meat is produced. So you can see that chicken meat is the most demanded meat, followed by pig and beef. Now, if you when we look at world production of meat, main items, meat, chicken has increased, and you can see the last row here. This color is meat chicken, this color is pigs, this color is cattle, this is other. So everything has increased. Everything has increased, keeping the similar ratios in terms of the among the products that is being produced. Now, if you look at main producers of these items, chicken meat is mainly produced in United States of America, China, and Brazil. Apart from others, you have these three countries are the largest producers of meat. China, United States, and Germany are largest producers of pig meat, and China stands out as a pig meat producer. When you look at cattle, United States of America, Brazil, and China are the main producers. Right? Now look at production of milk. Right? This is meat. You know that chicken is the most demanded one. And now let's look at milk. Milk production. Asia is the largest milk producer. And everywhere the milk production have increased. And everywhere, every region, milk production have increased with their shares. Now, if you look at the breakdown of main producers, 21% of milk comes from India, our neighbor India. 11% comes from United States of America. 6% comes from Pakistan. 4% comes from China. 4% from Brazil and Germany and Russian. Brazil, Germany, Russian Federation, and France produces only 3% of world milk production. Right? So this is how milk is produced around the world. Right? So India is the main producer of milk in the world. Right? Now, when you look at eggs, hen eggs, right? Chicken, poultry eggs, Asia is the main producer. America is followed by America, Europe, Africa, and Oceania. Now, Asia in 2019, out of the total egg production, 62% was produced in Asia, 21% is produced in America. I'm looking at here. And 13% is produced in Europe out of the total egg production in 2019. Now, if you look at the 2019 main producers, China is the largest producer of eggs, largest producer of eggs. And United States, followed by United States 8%, China is 35%, United States is 8%. India is 7%, Indonesia is 6%, Brazil, Mexico, Japan, and Russian Federation is 3% of world egg production is produced in Russia. 3% of world egg production. Now, if you look at sustainability, now we were talking about the input use in agriculture sector. We were talking about production in the agriculture sector, how production have occurred in terms of crops, livestock, milk, meat, milk, and eggs, how that has changed over time, and how input use have changed over time. And I have shown you that fertilizer use have increased rapidly, pesticide use have increased rapidly. And with that, when you increase a lot of fertilizer use, you increase pesticide use, normally sustainability and environmental aspects comes into play. Right? Sustainability and environmental aspects comes into play. Now, with agriculture, forests are damaged. Right? Forests are cut down in order to get agriculture area. And also, agriculture area is used for other activities like development projects, housing projects, and all that agriculture area is needed. So from 2000 to 2019, right, from the year 2000 to 2019, in the world, 127 million hectares of agricultural land has been converted to other uses. It has been converted to other uses. So between 2000 to 2019, 127 million hectares of land, agricultural land has been declined. Size of a country, right? This is about size of a Niger. Niger is a country. And in terms of forests, right? In terms of forests, sometimes forests are used for other uses, but agricultural uses are also, for agricultural purposes, forests are used. So therefore, 94 million hectares of forests have been declined, right? Forest area, 94 million hectares of forest area has also been declined from year 2000 to 2019. Now, if you look at the harvested area, planted and harvested area, as we said, 50% of harvested area is from cereals, right? Cereals are the main cereal group, right? Rice, irigu, maize, all comes under cereal, right? So cereals accounts for 50% of the planted area. Now that is land. Land has declined over the years, right? Agriculture area, 127 million hectares have been lost. Forest, 94 million hectares have been lost in the past 20 years. The other important aspect is water stress, right? Water availability to cultivate, right? Nearly all countries in the Near East and North Africa, right? Near East and North Africa have water stress level close to above 100%. 100% water stress, right? Near East and North Africa, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. They have very high water stress level. But we will show you later in the next slide set, we will show you that all these countries, although with water stress, come up as major agricultural producers in the world, right? So we will see that is the future trend, right? That is the future trend using desert agriculture, right? Even Sri Lanka, we are talking about desertification, right? Some areas are converting into desert because of various anthropogenic activity. That is because of people's activities. The some areas in the country are becoming deserts. Right? So that is a very big issue in the world today, right? Not only in Sri Lanka, but in all over the world. So therefore, water stress is going to be a factor, right? So how do you sustainable agriculture in these areas? Now, another important aspect is climate change. Climate change happens because greenhouse gas emissions from various sources, right? You know that when you drive a car, greenhouse gas is emitted. When you do production activities, greenhouse gas is emitted. And therefore, it contributes to climate change. And it contributes to climate change. Right? Now, if you take agriculture itself from 2000 to 2019, a 2% reduction in greenhouse gas is seen. Right? 2% reduction in greenhouse gas is seen. Right? Greenhouse gas emissions on agricultural land, right? Greenhouse gas emissions from agricultural land declined by 2% from 2000 to 2019. Right? But farm gate greenhouse gas emissions have increased by 11%. Farm gate greenhouse gas emissions went up by 11% between 2000 and 2019. Around 55% of them are related to livestock. So livestock production is one of the major contributors of greenhouse gas emissions. Right? Greenhouse gas emissions. So that is how the sustainability issue of agriculture. The rising concern of greenhouse gas emission, stress, water stress levels, and declining land area. Right? So with the current trends of the past 20 years, current trends of agricultural production, we have looked at application of various inputs such as fertilizer, use of land, use of water, pesticide, and we have seen everything has increased, and production in terms of crops, in terms of livestock products such as meat, milk, and eggs, everything is set to increase, right? Set to increase. But with those production increases and increases in heavy use of inputs, what we see is there are sustainability issues. What are those? Reduction of land, reduction of agricultural land and forestry area directly affects agricultural production. Directly affects agricultural production. So how can we sustain the agricultural production into the future generations? Water is becoming a critical factor. Water is becoming scarce or critical factor in the world, especially near the African countries. Water becomes a critical factor. So sustainability of agriculture is questionable. In addition to that, greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture is a concern, which leads to climate change. So sustainability and environmental protection is challenged in this case. So therefore, we will have to look at what can we do in the future in the agriculture sector. So to do that, before we go into that, we will have 5 minutes or 10 minutes break. Right? 10 minutes break. It's exactly 11:45, and we will start exactly at 11:55. Right? So let's have a small break and continue with our discussion with the next slides. Right? හරියට ඇහුණනේ විනාඩි 10ක break. Okay, now we are going to see. Now we are going to see future challenges of agriculture, right? So now, up to now, we have seen what happened in the agriculture sector in terms of input use and production. Now we are going to see future challenges of agriculture. In this lecture, I will show you a series of videos, right? Series of videos where the futuristic nature of agriculture is futuristic aspects of agriculture is currently practiced and what is there in the agriculture sector holds for the future, right? So to do that, first we will try to understand the need for agriculture and what are the challenges in agriculture first. Now, we can see there is an elevated increase in demographics, which will boost demand for food, right? What is the meaning of demographics? Demographic is population, right? Study of population. Demographics. For demographics, the nature of population. Now, if you look at the world population, the population is expected to grow by 33% to almost 10 billion by 2050, right? So it's growing rapidly. Now, in some areas, you can see in this picture, some areas population will increase and come down. But generally, overall, the world population is growing. So this is Sub-Saharan Africa, this is India, this is China, this is OECD. This is annual growth rate of population from 2012 to 2021, and this is the expected growth rate of population from 2022 to 2031, right? You can see that growth rate in population have declined in all years, right? All decades that we are considering, but still the total population will grow into 10 billion by 2050. I think it's 8 billion by now, right? So when you have a lot of people in the world, immediately you can understand there are a lot of hungry people in the world. So every mouth has to be fed, right? So 10 billion mouths will be there to be fed by 2050. So the current level of agricultural production may not be able to cater to that demand in the 2050 because there will be a lot of people than today in 2050. Now, if you look at global use of major commodities in the world, now this is maize, this is other coarse grains, this is rice, wheat, oilseed, pulses, roots, and so on, right? Now you can see in 2019 to 2021, and this is 2031 predicted value, right? 2031 predicted value. Out of maize, right? Out of maize, this part is food, used for food. This part is used for biofuel. This part is for other uses. This part is for feed. Right? This part is for feed. Now you can see out of the production of maize in the world, major portion goes into production of feed for animals, right? Feed for animals. And even in this one, other grains, even here, oils, most go for feed production, right? Most of the production goes into feed production. Now, still, population growth will boost demand for food even in the modest economic growth scenario. If you assume that economy will grow very slowly, right? Not that fast. Or the world economy will grow slowly, not that fast. Still, by roughly 50%, population growth will boost demand for food even in the modest economic growth scenario by 50%, right? As compared to 2030 agricultural output. Again, 2013 තිබ්බ ගන්නට වඩා 2050 වෙනකොට 50% වලින් food ඕන වෙනවා, right? 50% increase in food. So what you have to understand is because of the population growth, there will be more demand for food, right? There will be more demand for food. Now, 10 billion world population in 2050, which is equal to 70% more food to be produced by farmers. Right? 70% more food to be produced by farmers when population increases to 10 billion. And also, urbanization, we see that all countries urbanize. We also see that in our countries, people move away from rural areas and come into urban districts. Right? And urbanization changes the pattern of food consumption. Right? Changes the pattern of food consumption. For example, in the world, in 1997-1999 period, 36.4 kilograms of meat were eaten by one person. Right? For 36.4 kilograms meat was eaten by one person per year in 97-99 period. But by 2030, it will go up to 45.3 kilogram of annual consumption. Right? එක අවුරුද්දකට මිනිහෙක් කිලෝග්‍රෑම් 45.3ක් කනවා කියලා කියනවා 2030 වෙනකොට meat. Right? So we do not eat that much of meat generally, right? So we eat less meat. But when you urbanize, when you go into urban areas, sometimes when your income rises, you tend to eat more meat than other rice and other grains, right? So therefore, urbanization drives changes in consumption pattern. So that is, the demand for food increases, but the way that demand increases is different, right? Because of the urbanization. Now, you can see that what I shown here is food demand is rising for various foods, right? Anyway, it will be rising. But to produce this food, you need natural resources, right? Produce these agricultural aspects and produce these agricultural products, and then food, you need natural resources. But these natural resources are highly stressed, right? Highly stressed. So it is said that 25% of all farmland is already rated as highly degraded. 25% of all farmland are rated as highly degraded. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒවා infertile වෙලා තියෙනවා. Close to 80% of global deforestation is driven by agricultural concerns. I said 97 million hectares of land, forest area is gone away from 2000 to 2009. So this deforestation is mainly driven by agricultural concerns, right? So 80% of deforestation is mainly driven by agricultural concerns. In terms of water, land is degraded. Deforestation happens in the country. In terms of water, about $1 trillion investment is necessary until 2050 to irrigate for irrigation water management in developing countries alone, right? Only in developing countries. So you can see there is water stress, right? There is water stress in the world. So we need to produce more food, but our natural resources that we have to produce food is stressed, right? Stressed. In addition, climate change is reducing productivity in agriculture. So see what is happening. There is a lot of production is needed. Lot of production is needed. You need 70% more food. Already our natural resource system is stressed. Less water, less land, less forests. And in addition to that, to aggravate the problem, the climate change is reducing agricultural output. What we can get, the yield of crops is reduced. They can අපේ අස්වැන්න අඩු කරනවා climate change එක නිසා. It is said that 2 times greenhouse gas emissions has resulted in the past 50 years. And because of that, climate change happens, variability of precipitation reduces crop yields and rise in frequency of droughts, floods, all of which will tend to reduce crop yields. So again, I'm repeating, you need more food because of growing population. 70% of crops has to be increased. Production has to be increased by close to 70%. But our land, our natural resources that we have to produce this output is already degraded. 25% of farmland is infertile. There is water stress. And in addition to that, climate change is reducing yield. Anyway, the possible yield is reduced by climate change. So what can we do? In addition to that, we say that we need 70% more food by 2050. But at the same time, we are wasting close to 33 to 50% of food that is produced, either in the production farm level or either in the supply chain when it moves from farmer to the final consumer. So 33% to 50% is said to be lost during the supply chain from production to the final consumer. So this 33 to 50% is equivalent to 25% of all freshwater consumption globally. To produce these crops, you need water, right? You need water. Now you use water and produce this crop. Once it is produced, you don't eat it. You have to throw it away. So the water that is used to produce this crop is all automatically thrown away. That is close to 25% of water consumed globally in the world. Now you have seen in Ethiopia and all these places where people don't have anything to eat. I have seen children eating mud in these areas. In some countries in Africa, children eating mud, right? Because they don't have anything to eat. But what happens in the world? 50% is food is thrown away, right? 50% of food. Half of the food that we produce is thrown away globally, right? So therefore, we have a role to play, right? We have a role to play. So what can we do, right? What can we do in order to overcome these problems, right? In order to overcome these problems. So what are the problems? We need more food to be produced, but our natural resources are stressed. Climate change will reduce our possible ability to produce food. And also we throw away, our system is so inefficient, 50% of food is lost, wasted. So for that, there is a new trend coming in called agriculture 4.0, right? 4.0. So what is this agriculture 4.0? Agriculture 4.0 is a term for the next big trends facing the industry. Agriculture 4.0 is the next big trend supposed to face the industry. It will have a greater focus on precision agriculture, that is the future, right? So I'm talking about future trends in agriculture. It has a greater focus on precision agriculture. It will have a greater focus on Internet of Things. I will explain what that means, Internet of Things. It will have a greater focus on the use of big data to drive greater business efficiencies in the face of rising populations and climate change, right? So improving efficiency of supply chain, we will have an example. I will show you an example, improving efficiency in supply chains. So this is what agriculture 4 is, right? It's the next big trend facing the industry. So what is this agriculture 4 and what does it give us, right? What does it give us? Now let's see what it means. Now this is a map of technologies and maturity. Agriculture 4 looks at agriculture under 3 different areas, right? 3 different areas. First one, which is shown as 2.1 here, is it encourages countries or agriculturists to produce differently using new techniques, right? Produce differently using new techniques. That is the first part. Produce differently using new techniques. Now, today, we have hydroponics, we have algae feedstock, we will talk about what they are, and we have bioplastics, which is a plastic is a major force of environmental degradation in the food chain, and we can make it degradable. That is called bioplastic. So these are the things. And also desert agriculture and seawater farming. Right? So we have examples. I will show you videos of how that is done. Then the second one is use new technologies to bring food production to consumers, increasing efficiencies in the food chain. I said in the food chain or the food supply chain, food is lost. About 50% of food is lost. Whatever is produced is lost when it is going from various entities to the final consumer. So to reduce that inefficiency, urban farming is promoted, right? Urban farming is promoted. So when you do urban farming, we know that in urban areas, we do not have that much of land. Land becomes a scarce commodity. So when in that case, that is called vertical farming. Even in Sri Lanka, it is happening now. But I will show you an international video. I don't have a video about that in Sri Lankan context, but I hear that it's available in Sri Lanka at various levels. And also use new technologies to bring food production to consumers, increasing efficiency in the food chain. You can do genetic modification, cultured meats. That is what I said. You can eat meat without killing an animal, and also 3D printing, reducing waste, right? So how do you do that? To print something, to print a carrot, what do you need? You need what is in the carrot. So if you can get what is in, rather than getting carrots, you can get what is in the carrot into a printing shop and print the carrot and sell. That is a way of reducing waste in the transportation, right? So there are places where if you want a biscuit, for example, if you want a cookie to buy from a shop, and if you want a certain shape in the cookie, let's say you want a heart-shaped cookie, and you can go into a computer, give the shape, and it will be printed, right? So like you can print anything in paper. Similarly, food can be printed, right? So that is another way of doing things, right? So these are examples. Then incorporate cross-industry technologies and applications. Cross-industry technologies. What are cross-industry technologies? Technologies used in other industries, which can be used in the production, in the agricultural production, such as drone technology, data analytics, Internet of Things, precision agriculture. These have been these techniques that are used in these things that I am talking about have been used in other industries. Now they are heavily used in agriculture sector. And in the future, the nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, food sharing and crowd farming, blockchain, and all this will come. And food sharing is already there. Some firms have invested in this. And blockchain, I will show you an example how that is happening in the world. Right? So that is the overview of agriculture food and the future trends in the agriculture sector. So let's go into this one by one with some example videos. So we said first one, produce differently using new techniques, right? We have hydroponics, which is a subset of hydroculture, is the method of growing plants without soil, right? I think you may have thought about this in this course or somewhere else. I think this course you may have encountered hydroponics, growing without soil, using mineral nutrient solution in water solvent. So you have water. In the water, you grow a plant, and the mineral or nutrients are given from the water, with the water, right? So then you don't need soil as traditional cultivation techniques. Now, a company called Sundrop in Australia has developed hydroponics with seawater. right? Hydroponic system with seawater. Now, water, I said in the previous slides, water is a scarce commodity, especially in African region, you have water scarcity. Sometimes when you rely on rainfall, with the climate change, rainfall pattern is totally disrupted. Sometimes you do not get rainfall in the required growing time. But the sea is there, right? Sea is there, ocean is there. If you can get water from the ocean, always there will be water in the ocean. If you can get water from the ocean and use it for cultivation of crops, then this erratic rainfall problem goes away, right? But seawater cannot be directly used. You know that seawater to cultivate land, cultivate crops. But they have found a way of doing that. So let's listen to this video and see how Sundrop is doing this, right? So if you cannot hear what is said in the video, please let me know. Can you hear this? Did you hear that? I have another hand. I have another. Do you hear this?
Yes, sir.
We're standing right now in one of our 5 hectares.
Yes. Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Here.
I have another.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
Greenhouses, which makes up part of a 20-hectare farm here in Australia. We're looking at about 180,000 tomato plants, and they produce about 2 truckloads worth of tomatoes that go for nationwide distribution at Coles supermarkets every day.
This is a world's first. So we're harnessing the sun's energy to desalinate salt water to create fresh water to irrigate our crops.
When the sun comes up over the Flinders Ranges, the mirrors reflect the sun's energy to a central point on the tower. At the top of the tower, you see a very bright light, and that bright light is basically the focus of all those 23,000 plus mirrors onto the central point.
The partnership that I formed with Rainier in setting up this business was really fortuitous.
We both knew, considering the increase in population, that we had to address the food shortage, the water shortage, the energy shortage. About 5 kilometers away, we have the Spencer Gulf. We pipe in seawater through a pipeline underground into the first 2 ponds. The water is being then pumped to the multi-effect distillation unit. That's where it's being converted into fresh water.
When you think about all those input costs in traditional agriculture, you're a complete price taker on all of your inputs, and that creates a really volatile business model. And we said, how can we move away from that? We built a very small pilot facility in 2009. We were only 2 people at that time, and then slowly but surely over the years grew by 1 or 2 more.
We have the best of both worlds because we are a small, agile company, but on the other end, we benefit from the support from a fairly large and well-capitalized financial sponsors.
This is the part where the fruits are going to be formed. So it's very, very important that this is looking good. And what we're looking for here is we're looking at the color of the leaves. We're looking at the strength and the thickness of the head of the plant. We're also looking at the truss development. And all of the nutrition is delivered through the drip feed irrigation system. So this provides our water and the nutritional needs for the plants. Once our plants start producing, we'll harvest 1 truss every week and we'll grow 1 new truss every week. Midsummer, we'll produce 15 to 20,000 5-kilogram cases per day.
The relationship with Coles is really significant that we have here. It's a true partnership. It's to the extent that we haven't seen historically.
Because we do everything in a controlled environment, we know what our input costs are, and doing everything on a renewable basis, we can provide real consistency of supply, a higher quality product at a better price year-round.
We have an agreement for 10 years to basically sell all our tomatoes at a fixed price, and that enabled us to put on the ground here a fairly large piece of infrastructure.
when you have a growing category and then you have these 100-year weather events that are happening every 2 to 3 years here in Australia, Coles would consistently find themselves without quality product or with no product. So Sundrop really partnered with Coles to provide a solution. Sundrop Farms is a triple bottom line business. We produce a better product that's better for people and better for the planet all year round.
What we do in the future may not look exactly like this facility in Port Augusta, but it'll always have those core tenets, that triple bottom line nature of the business. Whether we're growing berries in Tennessee or peppers in Portugal, I think that spirit and that sense will be a part of everything that we do.
Right. So that is where hydroponics, lack of water, and other new things like harnessing the solar energy for desalination is all in one case, right? So this is produced differently using new techniques, right? So this is what is needed for future. I think if Sri Lanka becomes, Sri Lankan companies and or maybe you as entrepreneurs can start something like this, then actually Sri Lanka will be better off. The second thing that we take in produce differently using new techniques is algae feedstock, right? Now, what is this importance of algae feedstock? Now, if you remember, when I drew the use of various products earlier, and I said maize, if you remember the picture, maize, when you have use of the demand for maize, some is going for food, and major part is going for feed, and some part is going for biofuel, and so on, right? But major part is going for feed production. Why do you need feed production? Because you need the livestock industry is a big industry in the world. So to feed the livestock, you need to produce feed. And for that, you produce maize. අපේ දැන් බඩේරුණු නැති වුණාම ඔයාලා දැනගත්තා පෝර නැති වෙලා බඩේරුණු නැති වුණා බිත්තර ගණන් ගියා මස් ගණන් ගියා අයියෝ. ඒවට feed හදන්න බඩේරුණු නැති වුණා. So likewise, this is the situation. Now, this actually can be consumed by humans, right? So we said that, okay, next 50 year, in the 2050, you have to increase production by 70%. Now, if you can use this for human consumption, now only this part is used for human consumption. If you can also use this part for human consumption, even with the current production level, you can actually achieve 2050 demand. Now, if you don't use this in feed production, then you have to have an alternative for feed production. So algae farm aquaculture can be used for feed production, right? Algae farmed agriculture sites can become substitute for feedstock, right? The cost of farming algae is 70% less than using these items to produce feed, right? So you can have, you can have algae farm on water, and when you have that, you can harvest this algae and produce feed without, then this will be available for human consumption. So that is again future. So that will reduce the cost of feed, and when cost of feed is reduced, the cost of meat, eggs, and milk will also come down. So that is the importance of algae in the future agriculture, right? So that is produced differently using new techniques. That is another example that you can use. And the third thing under producing differently using new techniques is desert agriculture and seawater farming. We already saw seawater farming in Sundrop example. But here also, we said that desertification is happening. Sometimes it's very difficult to find water. In some areas in the world, I think I showed you a world map where I showed that top of countries in African region is lacking water. Their water scarcity is almost 100%. And they are deserts, right? They are deserts. Now, how can you make them cultivate crops? Right? Now, desertification is a fact. Even our countries may become deserts in the long time into the future. So, desert agriculture has to be a reality. So, most of the world's surface is covered in water in the forms of oceans. Of the remaining 29% of land mass, 1/3 consists of deserts. Right? දැන් අපේ තියෙන මුළු ලෝකෙන් 29% තමයි land තියෙන්නේ. අනිත් ටික ඔක්කොම මුහුද. ඒ 29% වලුත් තුනෙන් එකක් deserts, right? So then you have to know that in order to feed the next generation, deserts has to be cultivated. Right? Deserts have to be cultivated. And this is how Saudi is doing that. Right? So let me show you another video, how smart they have been. Right? How smart they have been in one second, in cultivating land. What happened here? I have to copy this and paste it somewhere. My mouse is not working. Give me 1 minute. Something happened.
Hello guys and welcome to our channel. We all are aware of the fact that in the past few years, Saudi Arabia's agriculture development is astonishing. Large areas of the desert have been turned into agricultural fields. This transformation can definitely be called a major accomplishment for a country, especially when the country receives an average of about 4 inches of rain a year. In today's video, we're going to tell you how and why Saudi Arabia is turning its deserts into huge farmlands. So, stick with us and let's dive into today's video. Saudi Arabia is called as a desert kingdom. The country's wealth soared when oil was discovered. It utilizes billions of dollars of oil earnings to fuel many aspects of its economy and the lives of its citizens. One of these elements is the kingdom's food supply, which imports more than 80% of its required food using oil revenue. Approximately just 1.5% of Saudi Arabia's land area is arable. And what agriculture the nation does have consumes 80% of the country's limited water supply. While the kingdom is now food secure, agriculture in Saudi Arabia has been a key focus for those looking to increase the country's sustainability and mitigate the danger of global food supply network failures. The 1970s marked the beginning of serious agricultural development in the kingdom, and by the 1990s, Saudi Arabia was one of the largest wheat exporters in the world. Not just wheat, it also exports vegetables, fruits, dairy, products, and dates. Now, just think of Saudi Arabia. What comes to your mind? A scorching sun, inhospitable climate, and endless sand dunes? But how does such a country become such a big exporter of wheat? If we dig into the details, there is something going on in the country. Now let's find out. The government launched an extensive program to promote modern farming technology. The reason being the establishment of irrigation networks, storage, and expert facilities. Also to encourage agriculture research and training institutions. Huge circular greeneries are all across the country, and they are farmable in the middle of the desert as well. Surprisingly, in the past 60 years, Saudi Arabia has transformed 24,000 square kilometers of desert into fertile lands. About 10,000 years ago, Saudi Arabia was a land of rolling grasslands and forests watered by torrential monsoon rains. But now engineers have tapped this ancient water to meet the water needs of the country. This fossil water was trapped in aquifers as deep as 1 kilometer below the ground. These tactics paid off well. Saudi Arabia used this water for farming and milk production on a large scale. Conservation of energy and water isn't needed for a proper irrigation system. One of the best ways for this purpose was the century pivot irrigation method. Luckily, Saudi Arabia used that. This method was created by a farmer from Colorado named Frank Zybach. As the name highlights, the center pivot irrigates in a circular fashion around a central pivot point. Not just water, but these pivots are capable of supplying herbicides and chemical fertilizers. So by using a single piece of machinery, the overall efficiency of the irrigation system was improved. Saudi Arabia has been building central pivot systems for 50 years. But Arabian Peninsula receives very little rainfall. The aquifers have nearly emptied. When we talk about the western mountainous region of Saudi Arabia, most rainfall flows back to the sea unused. This means Saudi Arabia is suffering from water loss, and this also affects the agriculture. But to meet the needs of its people, Saudi Arabia plans smartly and has brought agricultural lands in US, Indonesia, Argentina, and other African countries. If we look into history, when urbanization and modernization increased, the government made the Bedouin tribes to settle in one place, and due to overgrazing there, the fertile lands were converted into rocky desert. So, 2 royal Saudi princesses initiated a development project in these areas. That was led by Harvard University bioethics, Mona Hamdi, and Stanford University permaculturalist Neil Speckman. They lived among Bedouin communities for 8 years and built rock terraces, checked dams and shallow ditches in the land to trap water. Unfortunately, the funding was cut in 2016, and the whole project was in danger. But in 2018 and 2019, rain fell again, and the whole area turned into a savanna. The mountain terraces trapped water and gave life to the soil. After that comes another project. The country launched the Al-Baida project to manage the floodwater that was directly going to the sea unused. If the entire west coast is covered under the project, then 30 million acres can be transformed into agricultural lands. But this will cost billions of dollars in time. Positively, the agricultural capacity of Saudi Arabia could be multiplied by a minimum of 6 times, which will increase the GDP up to 5%. It will be helpful to reverse desertification, as carbon gases will again be fixed to fertile soil, and this will result in rainfall in the region. To supply the population with fresh water, Saudi Arabia is using another tactic. That is to use desalination plants to desalinate the seawater into fresh water. One method for desalination is by using thermal gases, and the other is by membrane-based reverse osmosis, which runs by using electricity. This electricity is harnessed by nuclear power. So before you get confused, let's simplify it. To make a land green, we need water, and for water, we need to desalinate it. For desalination, nuclear energy is required. All of this is interconnected. Facilities have also been put into place to treat urban and industrial runoff. For agricultural irrigation, liquid nano clay, or LNC, serves as another important tactic. This is being used nowadays that can save water consumption by 50%, but it is quite expensive. LNC is a treatment that gives the sand a clay coating so that it can trap water effectively. Saudi Arabia has also allocated financial resources for agricultural research purposes to further improve its agricultural system. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know in the comment section what you think about Saudi Arabia's agricultural system. Be sure to like the video and share it with your friends.
Right.
We'll be back soon with another amazing video. We'll catch you.
That is about desertification and how deserts have been converted into agriculture. So we should be ashamed of ourselves. We have all water, we have all fertile lands, but still Saudi is exporting more than us. Right? So that is how our country has fared over time. So this is desert agriculture produced differently using new techniques. Next one that we want to look at is sustainable packaging. Right? So I said here in this picture, produced differently about bioplastic. So why this bioplastic come into the agriculture program is whatever we produce is going, whatever you produce as agriculture is in your farms has to be converted into food and then finally consumed by consumers. Now, the primary agricultural products that you produce in your farm will have to go to final consumers either in packs or bags or whatever way. So plastic is heavily used in the supply chain. Right? Plastic is heavily used in the supply chain. So when plastics and polythene is used in the supply chain, it is an environmental concern. Now we know that it is a big issue even in Sri Lanka. So for that, a company have invested in a new technique called biopackaging, right? Biopackaging. So let's again look at that as well to understand what is the meaning of this and what they do in that case, right?
The food industry is the #1 contributor to plastic waste.
But what is happening to that plastic after we've consumed that?
We are fighting for the future of food to eliminate that amount of plastic left behind us.
Plastic is so robust that it takes about 500 years to biodegrade.
That is the reason why TPAS technology offers a full, good alternative to replace plastic, which is fully compostable. In TPA, we develop solutions that disintegrate and biodegrade within up to 6 months.
While plastic used to be the only solution to package goods, now we can offer solutions that break down
to small parts. The small parts are eaten by bacteria, and the bacteria creates the compost, the soil. TPAS technology actually imitates conventional plastic, polypropylene and polyethylene.
All our manufacturing is exactly the same like conventional plastic.
It looks the same and works on the same machinery.
The only difference is that we use compostable polymers that are easy to go back to nature.
We offer our customers a way to adopt new technology that actually brings them a very easy, ethical, sustainable way to change their plastic products into non-plastic products. This way they can even increase their market share and increase their profitability.
Our vision is to allow for consumers to continue to enjoy fresh food off the shelf while knowing that the packages they use are organically recyclable and can go back to nature.
Changes cannot be done without innovation, and we need to do it right now in a very fast way.
Right, so that is about how you can improve the supply chain in the agriculture using, it's an Israeli company. Israel is bad these days, but they have invested, they have a lot of innovations to increase nature, right? Improve nature. Now that is again another example of producing differently using new techniques. Now let's move into the second component of agriculture 4, which is use of new technologies to bring food production to consumers, increasing efficiencies in food chain. Now, I said earlier, you have farms and then it goes to something else, someone else, it goes to someone else, it goes to some company, and finally, we get it as consumers, right? So this is farm. We call them these intermediaries. Let's say this is a collector. This is, let's say, manufacturing organization, manufacturer. This is, let's say, retail shop who sell to final consumer. Right? So it goes through many things. So this may be in, let's say, for example, let's say I'm eating an apple. This is me. I am eating an apple, right? So this apple is produced in USA. It comes through various forms, various transportation systems. It comes in a plane, or it may come in a ship, it may come in a truck, and it goes through various companies, importers, exporters, and all that. And finally, let's say this is Kiehl's, and I buy that apple in Kiehl's, right? Now see how long the distance it has traveled from USA to here, right? So if, let's take away USA, let's take, this is Anuradhapura, right? From Anuradhapura, even from, let's say, rice produced comes into areas, through various places, various entities to final consumer, me sitting in Colombo, right? So that is where food is lost. This is where wastage happens, right? Wastage happens even when we eat and when we transport food from farm to final consumer. So to avoid this long distance or avoid this or remove these inefficiencies, what you can do is you can produce closer to me, somewhere here, right? Produce closer to me. Oh, I am living in Colombo urban area. You can produce closer to urban areas. So urban areas is congested. We know that urban areas are congested. Lot of land availability is very low. So that is why we have urban farming or mostly vertical farming, going up, right? Rather than going horizontally, අපි farm size එක වැඩි කරනවනේ අක්කර ගන්න වැඩි කරනවා. දැන් කරන්නේ උඩට හදනවා, right? Vertical farms. Now let's see an example of how that happens in the big way, and in what farms called aero farms in USA, where they use Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and vertical farming together to give us a better product, right? So let's see that one as well. So it is a 360-degree video. So I will rotate the video once it is going. Anyway, for you to see everywhere in the manufacturing place, the rotation is done by me, right? So when it's moving.
Today, we invite you for an exclusive visit with agriculture technology leader and vertical farming pioneer, AeroFarm, at their global headquarters in Newark, New Jersey, home to the largest indoor vertical farm in the world. Once an abandoned steel mill, AeroFarms has transformed this 70,000 square foot facility into a high-tech farming operation that can annually produce up to 2 million pounds of leafy green vegetables, growing hundreds of varieties of fresh, local, nutritious, and great-tasting produce all year round. Their closed-loop growing system is at the nexus of biology, engineering, and big data. Crops grow in optimal conditions in customized vertical towers without sun or soil. Baby leafy greens grow under special recipes of LED lights on a patented growing cloth medium in custom aeroponic towers. AeroFarm's proprietary controlled environment design and smart use of sensors, IoT, machine learning, and data analytics allows them to collect and analyze hundreds of thousands of data points on inputs such as humidity, temperature, nutrition, and yield, resulting in 390 times greater productivity than field farming, while creating a higher quality, safer, more nutritious, and even better tasting product. More importantly, AeroFarms are designed to maximize quality while minimizing harm to the environment. They use 95% less water than field farming, up to 40% less fertilizer, and are pesticide-free. AeroFarms is on a mission to feed the world and totally transform the current agricultural paradigm from seed to package, using cutting-edge technology and big data as their eyes and ears. AeroFarms strategic partners, where we replicate and scale our farms around the world. Even more importantly, we share similar philosophies to be a force for good in the world. We both place our team, customers, community, environment, and investors at the heart of every decision we make. In the work we do, we are here to inspire and hope that our mission and technology motivates you to get involved and build a better world.
Right, so that is about vertical farm, right? So if you have listened to the video carefully, and you can look at them later, I have posted these slides in the LMS, and you log into the LMS, and you can actually see these videos again if you like. I encourage you to search these things on the internet, right? So vertical farming, what is happening? Can you do that in Sri Lanka? I know that this is happening in Sri Lanka. I think there is a firm giving out support for farmers to do this, and you just search and find, right? And then the second one under using new technologies to bring food production to consumers is genetic modification or cultured meat, right? So this is a meat item that is where you produce meat by like doing tissue culture. I think you have learned tissue culture. You take tissues from plant parts and grow the plant. Now here what they do is they take tissues from an animal. They don't grow the animal, that is unethical, but they grow only meat of the animal. Now, if it is, for example, saying the chicken leg, you can actually grow the leg only, right? Without the whole chicken. So it's not actually killing an animal. It's just creating the meat from a single cell of an animal. So that is the future of because people are concerned now. Even when I was doing my PhD in UK, there was a student from Germany talking about studying about unethical practices of killing animal and the way that it's transported and all that, because people are concerned about the welfare of even the animal that is being killed, right? So actually people don't like to kill. So therefore this can be a future of meat production in the world, right? So I'm not going into this Mosa meat thing. I think it is, let me see, it is actually a website. It doesn't have any, I don't know whether it has a video. Let's see. Yes, it doesn't have any video, but for you to read that, right? So go into this and you can even search other things. I'm just giving you an example. So they have a burger. Let's see what the burger is. Right, so it's about the website. You can read the web and understand what is happening in that, right? So that is this one. Next, we go into applying 3D printing technology to food. Now, 3D printing technology is already there, and you can actually print even a toy, even a glass or whatever you can print. Which is already used, but it is new to food, right? It is new to food. 3D printing, which is becoming important in manufacturing industry, is now being applied to food production. 3D printing, also known as the additive manufacturing, is a process whereby layers of material are formed to create objects, in this case, familiar dishes, right? So the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research, I will show you this video. I don't know whether it's a bit longer. If it is longer, we will let you see it later in your free time. But Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research has developed a printing method for microalgae, a natural source of protein. And printing method for microalgae, natural source of protein, carbohydrates, pigments and antioxidants, and is turning those ingredients into edible foods like carrot. So read about this, try to understand this. I'm not the person to show you everything here, but I'm showing you that what is available, what is happening in the world outside Sri Lanka, right? So let's look at this and see whether it's a discussion. I think something like one person talking, that is what I don't like to show it that much. But anyway, let's see.
Once everything's perfectly organized, I'll start working on my thesis.
Not running.
Over the past years, here at TNO, we've been 3D printing a lot of different food products. In the beginning, the focus was mainly on creating interesting shapes. An example of this is these pasta kind of shapes that we made with pasta giant Barilla. And what is interesting is that this has resulted in the launch of a spin-off company from Barilla called Blue Rhapsody, and now you can order your 3D printed pasta online. Some years later, we started working on chocolate, and we did this with a big chocolate company called Mondelez. And also this resulted in the commercial launch of chocolate, which was done last year. Of course, very important for food, and it will remain so also with 3D printing for forever, I think. However, there's other functionalities that we create through 3D printing, and I think those are maybe even more interesting. One of these is personalization. This is an example of a personalized snack bar that we worked on with the Dutch Ministry of Defense. People from the Dutch Ministry of Defense could select their own kind of pastry casing, they could select the shape as well, but they could also select the kinds of fillings that go in there. And by doing so, they could create a snack that had a personalized nutritional content that fitted well with their specific bodies and their specific function needs in order for them to perform in an optimal manner. Now, over the coming years, we will take this one step further together with the Dutch Ministry of Defense and other partners, and we will work on the development of a vending machine type 3D printer that can print these kinds of snacks. Another functionality which is interesting is the one of texture. And here you see an example of a printed cookie, and you can see that it has a honeycomb type of structure. And because of this structure, which we can influence, we can make the pore sizes bigger, we can make the walls thicker or thinner, we can create cookies which have a different fracture force, which means you can make a softer or a harder cookie, not by changing the recipe, but by changing the structure that you have designed with your computer. And we think that these kinds of new ways to think about texture will lead to new kinds of texturized products which will have different textures, new textures over the coming years, and will lead to exciting new products that our partners can take to the market.
Right, so that is a shorter one. That is about 3D printing, right? So, but it's much more than that. Even a carrot is being produced, right, using 3D printing. So this is bringing food production to consumers. Then the third one, incorporating processing technique of things. So AeroFarms example, AeroFarms, the vertical farming example video, and you saw that there are certain sensors printed, certain sensors set up in the cameras, and sensors were set up in the vertical farm, right? So these things capture images, capture some sensitive information, and send it to a cloud or a computer system. So then it is used to release nutrients at the right time, release chemicals at the right time, and at the right quantities needed, so you are not wasting fertilizer and chemicals. So we saw in the previous slide said that application of nitrogen has increased over time, application of potassium increased by 73% in the world. So this has to come down. So taking it down is application of these things in precise amount, right? Precise amount. So how do you know that? Using digital information. For example, if you run a tractor along a field, crop field, tractor can even capture some data, right? When it goes through crops, the crop health can be monitored. Some for soil condition can be monitored by attaching some sensors into the tractor itself, right? So therefore, that is what we call as Internet of Things. These all sensors captures these things and automatically send it to a cloud, and from the cloud, we can use that information to treat the plants or the crops in the field. So that is Internet of Things, right? Then automation of skills and workforce. By 2050, we saw that the agricultural employment is coming down in our pictures that we have shown. By the 2050, the United Nations projects that 2/3 of the world population will live in urban areas, reducing the rural workforce, right? So even today we see in Sri Lanka, we cannot find any labor to do our agricultural activities. So rural workforce is declining. Therefore, new technologies will be needed to ease the workload on farmers. Operations will be done remotely, so you will be able to do things in the phone, and then it is automatically done. Now, if you have a good greenhouse, you can actually manage the greenhouse from your phone. Operations will be done remotely, processes will be automated, risks will be identified, and issues will be solved. In the future, a farmer's skills will increasingly be a mix of technology and biology skills rather than pure agriculture. So you cannot be pure agriculture in the future. That is what I'm saying. You have to have a mix of technology and biology skills rather than pure agricultural skills. You have to be a modern farmer in the future to come. And the next one under process industry technologies and applications is the drone technology, right? Drone technology. Even now we use drones. Even some plantations in this country uses drone technology in soil and field analysis, planting, crop spraying, crop monitoring, irrigation, and health assessments of plants. And in addition, blockchain and securing the agricultural value chain is another thing, right? So I hope you know what blockchain is. Blockchain is the distributed ledger technology behind Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I know that you know what is Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, or what we call as digital currency. So I think Bitcoin is not that much. I think it's illegal in the country, but it's coming up, right? This technology of transferring information securely, that is called blockchain. So blockchains can reduce inefficiencies and fraud and improve food safety, farmer pay, and transaction times. So let's see a video of AgriDigital company which has used blockchain in agriculture in another country, right? So let's see that and understand. What happened?
AgriDigital is the world's first cloud-hosted, multi-participatory supply chain platform. By that we mean that all participants across the agri supply chain, be they farmers, buyers, or even consumers, can all operate and interact on one platform for their transaction of their commodities. Myself and my other two co-founders, we've come together really to be unified around solving three problems that have plagued the industry globally for a long time. The problems of payment security for farmers and sellers through the supply chain, but also focused on helping buyers access just-in-time and flexible forms of supply chain finance so they can purchase commodities. And thirdly, I guess we're really focused on consumers like you and I so that we have food transparency. We're one of the world's first companies to use blockchain in agriculture, and we're looking at those unique properties of blockchain technology, such as immutability of data, the record keeping, the ability to execute smart contracts. We can ensure that there is payment security for all farmers, and that's really what motivates us. I guess at heart we're farmers, and that's what we're here for.
And and how to improve the supply chain of agriculture. And finally, we have two other things. One is nanotechnology and precision agriculture. And I have already said that the green revolution of the 20th century was driven by blind use of pesticides and chemical fertilizer. That is, with this hybrid varieties, we thought that, okay, we need to use a lot of fertilizer, and we used a lot of fertilizer. Even still, we are using a lot of fertilizer, and which is degrading our soils. The new revolution will be precision agriculture driven by nanotechnology. Right? This revolution will see nanoparticles delivered to plants and advanced biosensors for precision farming. I think in the video where desert agriculture that was shown, they were talking about nanotechnology and nanoparticles applied to sand particles, so that the sand will capture water. Right. So I think I know that even if you did not hear that, re-listen to that video and you will understand. And encapsulated conventional fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides will release nutrients and agrochemicals in a slow and sustained manner, resulting in precise dosage to the plant. So what is precision agriculture? Precision agriculture means you give precise dosages of water, chemicals, fertilizer, etc. to plants precisely, right, without wastage, so that the environmental impact will be very low. And finally, food sharing and crowd farming, where you have something called crowdsourcing. Already it was there, right? So if you want to do a business and you do not have money, you can show your business into the world in internet crowdsourcing websites, and people will fund you, right? Not one person, but several people. A lot of people will send money to your business, and that will give you money to do that, right? So therefore, same concept can be obtained to do food sharing and crowd farming. Crowd farming is you tell the crowd that there are farmers, the trees are available, and people will invest on trees, right? So then you will get a lot of money to cultivate. So there are two examples of food sharing. Food sharing is reducing waste of food and sharing it with other people. And crowd farming is taking the lot of people to invest in agriculture, and that is called crowd farming. And I hope you will be looking at these two at your home, right? So that is about what I have to say in this lecture today. I will talk about Sri Lankan situation in the next class. So do you have any questions that you want to ask me, or otherwise we can stop with that for the day?